I checked, children are manufactured the same way they always have been. And so as much as we want to make the distinction between the children of today and the children of a bygone era, they're all your kids. I can't tell whose is who. They all look like they're some kin to somebody in here. And if I know Birmingham like I do, they are. It wouldn't take us but 5 minutes to find out who they're related to. And you might also be connected to them in some way. And so if these are your children, then what are you doing for them? Dr. King once talked about an interesting equation. He talked about how when the Constitution was formed, a black man was less than a man. Numbers as low as 75% and 60%, but where the numbers ultimately landed, they never came out of the Constitutional Congress. But today, a black person is even less of a man. As Brother Kevin showed you, in virtually every category, which there's a quality of life indicator, we're at the bottom. But what's important about that is there's a way that we got here, and it's not by mistake or accident. It's not by some sort of foolish circumstances or somebody tripped and bumped their head and all of a sudden the bottom fell out of our community. There are things that we're doing as a community. So, see, we're going to have a conversation about us, right? And then we're going to talk about what we can do beyond that. Because the facts are these, that no matter how many words a child comes into school with, every single parent in here can teach a child to mind. You may not necessarily have a lot of words in your vocabulary, but yes and no, yes ma'am and no ma'am. Learning how to sit still in a classroom and being responsive to the teacher who's at the front ain't a bad place to start. You know, I don't give as much credence to the whole how many words you come into the school with, because I know that there are children from other countries who don't come here speaking any of the words of our language and beat all of your kids. They come in their freshman year of high school from China and outperform your children to the extent that they become the valedictorian of a school. Accent so thick that you can't even understand the speech that they give to basically say, I beat all of y'all. So we don't give too much credence to that, but we do have to understand that we as a community have to be more bold and more willing to take responsibility for the circumstances that are Birmingham. Because the circumstances in Birmingham are the same ones that there are in Hartford. Up the street from us, not 2 blocks away, is a school in which 7.7% of the 7th graders are doing math on grade level. 7.7. That's bad however you look at it. That's in Hartford. That's in New England. That's where we're supposed to have already overcome. Well, I'm telling you, we haven't, and it's for the same reason. It's because too many of us, the individuals in rooms such as these, who have the capacity to make a difference, don't. Too many people in positions such as yours are too interested in making friends, no different than a middle school girl. No different than that self-conscious 12-year-old who doesn't want to wear something because she thinks somebody's going to make fun of her. That's the same way that the leaders of our communities have taken on this responsibility. You're stiff-arming it for too long, and as a result, our children are dying in front of us, and we keep trying to find somebody and something to blame. There are no boogeymen to point to. There is no one from the outside. There's no white person to blame this on. They bounced a long time ago. Y'all can have all of Birmingham. You can't blame somebody from historical past. You can't blame them from another place. You got to own this. You got to let this sit on your heart and say, yeah, this really is me. This really is my NAACP. This really is my Urban League, who spends more time putting together events at the end of the year, worrying about whether or not you're going to order chicken cordon bleu or pork. Put 400 people in the room. The only people who make money are the people who own the hotel. You wear more money on you than you're giving away as a group, and then you understand why the children behind you don't trust you. See, I don't come this far and leave my school to just play. We're not here to patty cake. We're not here to tap dance because your children are dying, and your children are my children because they're mine just like they're yours. I love them like you do, and I'm tired of seeing this. I'm tired of excuses. I'm tired of somebody always looking at somebody else to find out where the problem lies. It's us. Don't look any further. You woke up with that problem. You'll go to bed with that problem. And until such time as you own it, you're going to keep that problem. We know how to run good schools. We absolutely do. You're going to hear from some of the best school operators in the country today. But the problem is too many of us are too willing to make sure the grown people are comfortable, don't want the teachers to lose their jobs. Y'all lucky I'm in a church. Don't want people to feel bad or don't want people to feel like the teachers are being vilified. Somebody's not teaching. It's not by mistake that children don't know how to read. If they're with the teachers for 7.5 hours or 7 hours, do a little less macaroni art. Pick up a book with some words in it and teach somebody to read. But see, we don't push hard enough. What we do is we allow these failure factories to stand because we figure we ain't sending our kids there, but they are your kids. Listen, teaching is not for everybody. Teaching is a calling. It's an art. It's something you either can do or you can't. That's why the term in education school is a bit of a misnomer, because you can't teach somebody to teach. You either can do it or you can't. You either think about things in terms of a big concept, you break down the smaller concepts, you give it to children so they can understand, or you don't. Yesterday I sat in on a class at my school. I was doing an observation. And I watched the teacher. My grandmother would say, things were terrible. Well, you have the same grandmother. And it was terrible. She couldn't get these children to sit still. There's nothing that she said that they heard. And she'd be the first to say that children were not paying attention. Why would they? You didn't say anything interesting. I was struggling. I was paid to be there. We are protecting grown people at the expense of our children. That's why your system has failed. Your system has failed to do one thing, educate kids, but employ people. It's doing really well. See, your values show themselves in what you do for your children. The children are the greatest example of each one of us. Regardless of what you go on to do in your life, you will be judged by the kind of parent that you are. If you can't come to Thanksgiving in a couple weeks talk about how your kid did something, you know, it is what it is. And so if you are to be judged by the type of children that you produce, Birmingham, what kind of parents are you? Why keep sending children to failure factories? Why not free them of that? Your school system, and this is not about a superintendent. Let me just be clear. I don't have any quarrel with your superintendent or not. Your system is broken. How about that? How do I know? You look at the numbers lately? In fact, have you looked at the numbers for the past couple generations? See, school systems don't fail necessarily because the superintendent is bad or because of a couple principals. It's because the whole thing is a rot inside it. It's either too big for it to be run by the individuals in it, whether they be in the finance office or the HR department or wherever they are. It's either too big for them or they're incompetent. But the facts are the facts. Your children are as smart as any others in the world. They're born with all the same parts as everybody in the world. The only thing that they have in common with Birmingham and nowhere else is that they go to Birmingham schools. If I picked one of them up and brought them up to Harvard, nobody would know, with the exception of an accent, where they come from. Oh, y'all make them really big. So other than that, because you have some really big children, and I would like to bring a couple up for our football team. But other than their size, we wouldn't know from where they came because they look just like many of us who came from down the south and went up north. The single defining moment is the day that they set foot in a failed school. And that failed school begins to deteriorate their self-esteem and self-confidence. They begin to think that they can't learn, and so there's no reason why for them to continue, for them to stay in school, because school is not school for them. We know how to run good schools, and we know where all the bad schools are. If I told you, hey, raise your hand if you know you could start naming them one after the other. They would just flow from your mouth, all the schools. And if you are one of these people that says, we don't know where the good school, how do you know a good school? Which one you send your kids to? Real easy when yours are in there. When you got some skin in the fight. These teachers who fighting to keep kids in failed schools, don't send their kids to those schools. How dare they? How dare they have the audacity to try and make somebody feel guilty for shutting down a school? It's not a school if kids ain't learning. It's a bomb shelter, it's a building, it's a gymnasium, it's a bunch of things, but it's not a school. A school requires learning at its core. That's what a school is. Teachers teach. That's what they do. Some jobs are not necessarily called what they do. Lawyer, I don't know, the lawyer, writing, but teacher, teach. Plumber, you figured it has something. But teacher is clear. There's a very clear relationship between the term teacher and student. You know you're teaching when your children are learning. If your children are not learning, you're not teaching. And if you're not teaching, then you're not doing your job. And as a matter of fact, you can't have this many people from this many homes failing in school and it just be the homes. It breaks my heart, Birmingham. I gotta be honest with you. It really does break my heart that we're here having this conversation. Here. For the people who paid the most. Really. Some of you in particular, and some of you by family, have either lost or had harmed people who you care very deeply about in the fight for civil rights, in the fight for equality. Y'all did. I didn't. Instead of raising the kings and queens or the prince and princesses of the civil rights movement, the people who should have gotten the most, and really, let's just be honest, just out of fairness, if there was one or two communities in the world who should really have gotten the most out of the deal, y'all should be up front, right? Instead, you come off more as the illegitimate children of the civil rights movement, the ones who nobody wants to talk about. And it's not because there's something wrong with your families, there's something wrong with your school system. One of the problems is we fight to keep failures open because we believe somewhere in our soul that if we close a failed school, that the children will somehow lose. That's what we've been convinced by the unions and the teachers associations. That's what they tell us. Don't shut down our schools. It's going to destroy the community. What community? It's real easy when you're playing with the house's money, right? When you're playing with other people's kids, it's real easy to have these esoteric conversations. But the facts are these. Even those students of yours who are, in fact, graduating, even those students, they're graduating without a high school diploma. I'll tell you how I know. Alabama State, the proud Alabama State, has a graduation rate of just about 20%. Can't make these things up, because even if you do, there are times when I look at this data, as the brother was saying, there are times when I look at the data, I can't even believe it. I see it all the time, but I don't believe it. It doesn't seem possible that a college in the United States of America could even exist in which 80% of the students who begin do not finish within 4 years. 80%. And these are the talented 10 that have in fact become the talented 10 once again. It was supposed to be a 10th during the Harlem Renaissance, not now. We can't get a talented 12th or 14th. ourselves out of this. We really do. You have to have people in the system who can run schools. You have to, by hook or crook, bring people to the community. And people say, we can do it all, do bad all by ourselves. Well, we got that one now. Let's stop with the ego. Stop with the look, we all need some help. Hartford needs some help. We all need some help. Everybody does. Don't take this help as anything other than help. Everybody needs it. Everybody needs it. I've yet to go to a black community anywhere in the United States of America and say, wow, that children. Whether it's Harlem or Hartford, we're all jammed up because our schools are terrible. They really are. Because so many of our families want out of these failure factories that they're willing to do whatever they have to do. Literally lie. Say they live at somebody's house that everybody knows they don't live at. Or because in some cases they have magnet schools where you need to be white because they're trying to integrate. People named Jamal putting it there white. Because I don't believe in an unjust law. I don't believe in things that say that we're going to put children in plantation schools. And that's what you got. You got plantation schools. Because on a plantation, what you could do is use your body as an athlete. You can run and jump and catch. But you couldn't learn to read. So you got yourself some plantation schools. Places where they're simply not performing. They're just not. And it's not because the kids are broken. See, if you know kids like I know kids, kids play all the time. In fact, the only issue with kids is to stop them from playing so bad. How many of you hollered yourselves, your voice is raw because your sons won't stop? I mean, they're just banging on each other. Like every chance they get is hit each other because that's what they do. That's just how they feel. When you go into a school and the children don't look like they're having fun, you got to think of how hard you got to go to make it so the kids don't have fun. You're in a building with nothing but children. That's what kids do. They just play all the time. They're like puppies. They just all the time. And if you go into a school and the children look miserable, it's not a school anymore. It's a lot of things. It's not a school. Where we go from here is very simple. We have to start shutting down failed schools. We must. We absolutely must. We need to offer up vouchers, for real. We need to allow children to go to the most effective schools in the area as soon as possible. We need to move at the speed of child as opposed to the speed of adult, because that's what we do wrong. See, 2 years in life of a child is everything. 2 years in a grown person's life, you don't forget that. Like 2 years, what was I doing 2 years ago? Somebody comes back and tell you, hey man, I saw you 10 years ago. You think you might have done that? I have no idea. But similarly, we keep having these reform conversations. You're too patient, Birmingham. You're too patient. You're too willing to let this thing happen. You're just waiting for something to happen. I don't know what you're waiting for. You're producing the kids the same way you always did, and you're getting different results. Your crime is going up. Your performance is going down. You're flatlining on graduation rates. For God's sake, it's got to be something different. Even if somebody does come into the school and does just as bad, give me a shot with a new one. My sons play the piano, not because I particularly care about the instrument, but because when I was growing up, the smart white kids played the piano. That's all the research that went into it. Some things don't require a lot of thought. And so I was listening to my sons, and I was listening to the oldest one play this particular song, and you gotta act like you know what's going on. You just gotta keep saying things to them. That don't sound right. Do it again. That's how it's supposed to sound, Daddy. No, it ain't. Like I know, right? That's being a father. But at one point, I heard him make the same mistake over and over. And I said to him, make a new mistake. Make a new mistake. Take a look at your lowest at least 20 performing schools. They started having some real conversations about when they're closing. For real. Or you could just keep hoping it's going to get better. In about 250 years, or you can say, I'm tired of talking to. Our kids are not the least intelligent children in the United States of America. I mean, you do understand, you do understand that some of your scores will put you in second and third world status. You get there, right? We're talking about countries where they don't have running water in many parts of the country, don't have clean water. And y'all got $40 million schools in which children are not learning. That's just not okay. So if you make a new mistake, what you'll do is you'll start to say, hey, you know what? Our children are beautiful. You saw them. You saw them when they came out. You remember when they were home and they're 2 years old and learning the words to songs and just, picking up a computer and being able to do anything they want on it. Then they go to school. They get an IEP. What way to do them all? We know why the schools are failing. We know that we've done this over-feminization of primary education where we have the boys being treated in such a way they have to act like girls, and if they don't act like girls, then there's something that's wrong with them, and that's not sexist, it's the truth. You ask any man in here, can he sit crisscross applesauce on anything? If you saw a brother sit crisscross applesauce, we understand that we do things differently, and as a result, we have a system that is consistently failing the same type of people, so maybe the system is broken. So what I suggest to you, I submit to you humbly, is that you begin to take a look around the country and find operators who are willing to come to Birmingham. Find individuals who are willing to come to Birmingham and find successful schools in the area and replicate those. So the best performing schools, replicate them. Period. Stop playing. You have very successful schools already here, make more of them. Call the operators up, say, hey, bro, want another one? How many can y'all handle? If a school system's purpose is to educate children, it's not educating children, it's not performing its purpose. The only thing it is now is a jobs program. If you want to run a jobs program, cool. But just recognize it's at your own peril. Because all these young men who are walking around the city without an education are dangerous. It's the way in which terrorists are often plucked. They find them from the lowest economic areas, the ones who are most susceptible to that level of dogma. Same way the gangs get them. They find hopeless people, and they give them hope. Even if the hope will cost them their lives, they give it to them. So I'll close here. I am profoundly confident that Birmingham, the Birmingham, will rise. I am confident that there is nothing that you need to do that the people in this room, just this sanctuary, can't do. If you decide as a group today to spend 30 minutes of simply identifying the ineffective schools, you more than likely come up with the same list. You wouldn't need to really go so hard at the data, though it would be nice. You all know where they are. And just because they won a state championship or they're such and such went to that school 40 years ago, whatever traditions it has, you can keep the traditions, just get somebody else to run that joint. Because people running it are not doing a good job. Doesn't mean they're bad people. They may be great husbands and wives and partners, grandmothers and grandfathers, wonderful, hardworking human beings, all the above, just bad at their job. It doesn't mean they're bad at their job like they can't go somewhere else and work with somebody else's kids, and if they want to work with somebody else's kids, good luck. But if there's any community on earth that deserves the best schools in the world, it should be the community that has paid the greatest price for civil rights. It should be the community that everybody has found their way through to celebrate the efforts of your forebears. If it's only going to be one city in the United States of America, why not Birmingham? There's only going to be one place where great schools become the hallmark of the community. It's got to be Birmingham. If it's only going to be one place where somebody makes a decision to make a new mistake and to create opportunity where there was none before, why not Birmingham? If you know, like I do, like the rest of the country does, if you knew what the rest of us thought about you, which is, wow, that's a powerful people. You are legendary in the world. You are legendary. And it's tough watching a legend be beat like this. Just watch you get just pummeled. When you got so much fight left in you. You taught the rest of us how to fight. Are your children worth it? Are your children worth you making a new mistake and creating opportunities where there should be? Your children are as beautiful and powerful as any, but they're only as beautiful and powerful as the systems around them. They are dim because you're not shining the light on. The only way out of this circumstance, the only way is through quality education. Nothing else. Nothing. Thank you so much for your time and attention. STEM program. STEM is science, technology, engineering, math. We are a liberal arts school, and so while we have science and those things, our primary focus really is on humanities. Excuse me, because we believe if you can read really well, you can do anything. And one of the things that I know that we as a community don't do often enough are really basic things at home. We don't do math facts enough. If you have a teenager in your life, you can still do math facts. Everybody should be able to multiply up to 9 and add, subtract, and divide. You should be able to. And so from a STEM perspective, we focus even on the basics. What is often said about schools such as ours and others is that we somehow pick the students from somewhere, like some magical place, and we just get the same kids. In fact, the kids who come to Capital Prep are their performance when we get them is below the city's average. But the difference is we run a year-round school because we didn't design a school for grown people. We designed it for children. We run a real year-round school. It's 201 days as opposed to 187. We have a longer school day. So while we don't focus specifically on STEM that way, our focus is on college preparation, and we provide children, we hope, with the foundation upon which they can build whatever their desires are. Last thing on that, we have a primary school. We're pre-K to 12. We've made some fundamental shifts in the way in which we educate. What you'll see in many elementary schools is they have one teacher, like a 3rd grade teacher. She teaches 3rd grade. She teaches 22 kids virtually all day. And that to me is the most absurd thing. It's a broken system. So what we do is we have specialists. So we have a humanities teacher and we have a math science teacher. So they teach 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how they, 1, 2. Kindergarten, and 1. So what we've done is we've specialized in the primary school to create those opportunities. As you're thinking of, as you're going to get those questions, one thing I want to point out is, so you have these speeches, and I don't want you to hear mine as a speech. I'm just talking to you as your brother. But what's important to understand is that most of the educational policies that you need to be in place can actually just be local. You don't need a governor to come in and let you do these things. Most of the decisions that you need to make, you can make. You don't need a congressman, you don't need a president, you don't need anybody. You don't need Johnson to send troops in anymore. Like, all that's done. Y'all did that. You did that. Actually, everything that you need to decide upon right now, you could do as city council people, as board Board of Education members, as parents, you could do all of those. You put all those things in place just by Board of Education. So the policies that you need in order to make the fundamental changes that you need, you actually can do it locally. Because ultimately that's where it's going to be done. Yes?
That was my question. What I wanted to find out was, we're dealing with the facts that we have, and they're not going to change unless we do something about them. What do we do? You know, like this is another form of empowerment, giving information. But I think moving from just information without action is still no good.
That's a great point. So I will be very, very specific. So you have a Board of Education. What you must do is you must go to your Board of Education and tell them that you need to begin to have operators come in and operate some of these schools. They have to. And that you can put together whatever policy you wish to locally about committees or parents' committees that will make those decisions. And then you are the taxpayers. You're the ones. They're your schools. And you could create whatever circumstances are legal in this state, which would mean, for instance, I don't ever want you to think that I'm a charter operator. Not like there's something bad about that, but I don't want you to think I lean towards any particular type of school. I just like good schools. I don't care if they're online schools. I don't care if they're charter schools or magnet schools or traditional neighborhoods. I don't really care as long as they're good. But what you need to do is make sure that you decide very specifically, were I to tell you what to do, I would think at least 30% of your schools right now should be run by someone else. It's just too much for what you do. What it looks like and has looked like to me over the years, and this is not just you, that I was asked to consider being a superintendent of a very large, well-known district, and I didn't want to do it at all. So that's why I went to the interview with no resume. I know see, when you have friends like Michelle, they always have people calling you trying to offer you jobs, and they don't listen so well that you like what you do. So, what I've said to many of the larger school systems is you're just over capacity. You just don't have the capacity to run as many schools as you currently operate. You can't go in and monitor the principals and monitor the data and put in place the systems that are necessary to monitor the overall progress. And so a number of those schools need to actually be locked off. And that the role of the administration and central office becomes monitoring the monitors as opposed to being responsible for what used to be. What is happening, unfortunately, now we're at a stage where the old and the new are breaking. And what that means is there was a time when you had a central office where you have a head of English, and she could be the head of English because there were like 3 high schools, and you know what I mean, and she could do something like that, and a couple hundred kids, a couple thousand. But now when you got almost 30,000 kids, and it's different. You need to run a different type of school system. You need to run a portfolio school system, which means you have different types of options. Also having homeschool options. You have to diminish the strain on the system. Even if you had great superintendents, and I presume you do, I don't want you to hear me say anything disparaging about any. I would if I felt it, but I just don't feel that way. The system itself is incapable of supporting the number of students and the number of needs of the students that the students have. So you need to have a different model. Otherwise, you're going to get exactly the same thing. You have to make some fundamental shifts immediately, like within the year. You guys should really be putting those things together now. Really. Last question. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Perry.
Okay.
David Thomas with Bayo.
Yes.
Pastor Craig asked the question, what can we do? What's the next step? Currently, Alabama state statute does not allow 4 charter schools. So we have to begin by talking to our local legislators to impress upon them the immediacy and urgency to change state statute. That's what Bayo and Stanford Children and other groups have been working on, to educate our community, to educate our legislators, to convince Black Democrats the need to change the law.
So so that's really important, but that you change your state statutes to allow for charters, and I do want to make that point, but I want to say something. I do need to say something to that. 2 things. One, it doesn't necessarily have to be a charter to be run by a public school system, someone other than the public school system, and I want to make that really clear. Your school system can put together a memorandum of understanding, a contract, with an outside organization to operate a school. They actually can do that. Now, again, I'm not an attorney and I don't know, but in most cases, what you can do, if you're doing it in Hartford, is we are going to run a school that is a public school, but we're the third-party operator. So the district will sign a deal with us, and we will run a public school, run two public schools on their behalf. And we will put together a thin contract, which means that we will have our own sets of rules. It's not a charter, because in most states, charter laws have you having a fraction of the money, and we'll hear more about that a little later on. But I'm saying there are things, that's right, you are right. You do need to change the laws because you do still need charters, you do still need other ones, but it doesn't mean you can't still go to your board and still say that right now, we gotta be able to do something in the meantime. We have to be able to do something for 2014. So there's that. And the last part I want to say is this, and I do, folks, and I say this to African Americans and liberals of all colors here. You got to be down with the people who are down with kids. You got to be supportive of the people who want to support kids and who are supporting school choice. And right now, one of the major problems that we have is we are too willing to give our votes to Democrats. And as it is right now in the United States of America, unfortunately, they are the least active on the issue of education reform. The least. And if you don't believe me, just look around. They're the ones who are closely connected to the teachers' unions, and they are the ones who are the most interested in maintaining the status quo. Status quo means keeping the schools the way they are, and their single solution is give us more money. You'll hear them always talk about underfunded schools or unfunded mandates, and No Child Left Behind was so bad. It's not actually. All No Child Left Behind said, very simply, was every kid needs access to a quality education. Thanks so much for your time and attention.